Okay, we're going to get started here. If everybody make sure you have your cup of coffee, your hot tea. Welcome on in for the last session of the day. Wow, you guys calmed down. They quieted down pretty quick. So thank you so much for rejoining us. I'm Melinda Kavanaugh, and I'm excited to be here as your moderator for the last but not least part of the day. I want to first begin by inviting Florence Mader and Andrea Vetz from the ALS Schweiz, our host organization, up to the stage. So on behalf of the International Alliance, I want to thank you and all of the ALS Schweiz Association for being our host association for this year's Alliance meeting. As they say, oh, there you are. As they say, we didn't practice this. As they say, it takes a village, and we are very, very lucky to have members like you. I'm personally thrilled to be here. I think we have all had such a wonderful time. You've hosted us with such generosity and such kindness and such patience as we've all kind of fumbled around and figured out where everything is. So we want to personally say thank you very, very much for all your time and energy, and for everybody at the ALS Schweiz organization. Thank you very, very much. Please.
I'd like to say that this applause shouldn't be just for Florence and me. It should be for the whole team from ALS Schweiz. So August, Danielle, Esther, and Michael is also here. Please come up. The applause. So they don't want to come up. They're it's okay.
Everybody turn around and stare at them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Absolutely. It really, it just seems like such a feat to host one of these things. So absolutely phenomenal. So now we're going to move on to our programming. Our first session. We have had a change in the program because unfortunately the first speaker was unable to get here. So we're now going to be starting with a showcase of art with Sarah Feldman. Come on up, Sarah.
Don't worry, I will not be doing any art. So yes, apparently travel through Europe right now is a bit of a snowy mess. And so we did have to make some changes to this next section. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs includes 5 levels: physiological, safety, love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Generally, the idea is you have to satisfy the lower level ones before you can move up. You guys had to have your snacks, your coffee, before you could come in here and learn something this afternoon. So at the top is the self-actualization. So the desire to reach your full potential. So once you're there, you're looking to be creative and learn something new, do something maybe through the beauty of art or music. In fact, the Alliance had a roundtable that mapped a person's journey through the ALS-MND against the hierarchy of needs using technology. And our Pals and Cows Advisory Council, our PCAC, members emphasized the importance of activities like concerts, exhibitions, virtual reality, travel, music, and cultural events. One of our members, this is her quote, Bernice Yu. To live is not just to have my physical needs met and be able to breathe. It is the other way around in terms of Maslow's hierarchy. I need to be able to love, to have belonging, esteem, and to be able to do and contribute and feel a sense of actualization. That is quality of life for me. So right now, for a few minutes, I invite you to sit back and watch what some of the people living with ALS have created in their quest for self-actualization. It's quite incredible. In this presentation, you'll see art from Rick Nelms, who is in the room today, Sarah Ezekiel, as well as others from the ALS Association's Creative Pursuits program, who have kindly shared some of their art for our enjoyment. The music in the background is played by Alper Kaya, also a member of our PCAC, and he's from Turkey. So let's sit back and relax and listen to this. So instead of taking questions, we're going to talk to one of the artists here.
Hello. Yes, I'm Rick, and I'm on the autistic spectrum. I'm a biologist, an educator, and an artist. I painted a few paintings in my professional career just to keep me sane, using oil pastels on board. And then one day, early on in my journey with this condition, I couldn't place the blobs of paint precisely enough to make the picture that I wanted to make. And I realized I was going to have to teach my computer to do it for me. It took me 5 years. You can see for yourself that I did what I set out to do. And that's so important because, for me, the things that I've learned that make life worthwhile are love and beauty and hope. And I think that my art expresses those things. The other thing which it does is that when I'm anxious, when I'm frightened, when I'm lonely, all of that flows out into the virtual canvas on my computer. All of that anxiety, that frustration, that anger, that pain, everything flows out into the paintings and disappears from my life forever. But it appears as beauty. It appears as something truly glorious, something I didn't know I had in me. And I'm just so grateful that you've been able to see some of the things which I've created. There are things I look at and I have to look back through my computer to prove to myself that I made them, because they are so utterly beautiful. And that beauty, that love, that hope is just so important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. What a wonderful treat to be able to see all that art. And thank you so much, Rick, for your beautiful words. Thank you. Up next, we're going to have a virtual presentation with Patrick Sullivan, embedding spiritual care, improving support for people with MND and their families.
I'd like to start by thanking the organisers for giving us the opportunity to present our data today. My name's Ian Morrison. I'm a consultant neurologist in NHS Tayside. I was lead for the project alongside my colleague Mr. Patrick Sullivan. I'll be doing the introductory section to the talk, and then Patrick will be giving you the results towards the end of the presentation. A few declarations of interest, none of which I think are directly relevant to the talk today, other than to note that the study was funded by the Gordon Aikman Award. Now, our service in NHS Tayside is relatively unique in the country. Rather than being a consultant-led service where we see the patients back every 4 months or so, we are primarily a patient-centred, nurse-led service. And that basically means that the patients have open access to see me as a consultant neurologist really on a monthly basis. But out with that, they are viewed regularly by the nurse specialists in a time and location that's convenient to them. Very often this is by telephone, on other occasions it can be in the patient's house. Alongside this, because NHS Tayside is a semi-rural area, we try to have community-focused engagement as well. So we have a number of community-based clinics that are one-stop clinics. Rather than patients having to travel to a large tertiary referral centre to see, for example, physiotherapy or occupational therapy, we arrange for them to be seen in their local area to save them travelling. Alongside this, we were an early pioneer of telemedicine, using the internet and telephone to contact our patients, again, to save them having to travel vast distances. And then we also try to encourage community engagement alongside several MND charities, particularly MND Scotland, which is very active in our area. And our service has been supported by audit and pathway development, and also assessing our practice against nationally agreed competencies, particularly at nursing level. Despite this service, we became aware there were a number of issues that had arisen that we could not address in our clinical service. First of all, we became aware that MND was not an illness that had one single bereavement at the end of the patient's life. We found that patients would often experience a series of bereavements throughout their illness. That started at diagnosis, but then also continued when patients were having a fresh loss of ability or function, so they were constantly grieving as they lost their abilities. And this wasn't just for the patients, this was something that we saw with their families as well. We became very aware that despite trying to put a focus on community support, community engagement, doing things in their local area, we still found that MND was quite an isolating illness, and that it also presented a number of barriers to engaging with friends and family. That wasn't just the loss of speech and language, but it was also physical disability that prevented them from going to interact with families at events. We were also aware that although we had very good neuropsychology support and also very good medical intervention, what we couldn't do was address the injustice of motor neuron disease. Patients would regularly tell us that they were very frustrated, why was it them that had this illness? And our focus very clearly at that time was on trying to make the patients better rather than perhaps addressing that injustice. And another thing that's very difficult, I think, for us to think about is that people often find it difficult to be honest about their illness. The media, the internet will often present MND, people with MND, as being heroes, these kind of heroic figures, the sort of face of national campaigns. And that's often not a patient's experience or their family's experience. And they found it very difficult to be honest with the challenges that they faced in their illness. And we were looking at how to deal with this when this paper was released by the Scottish Government. It was looking at the role of chaplaincy in chronic illness, and we then brought our chaplain into our MND service, and it was immediately successful, not only in addressing the areas that I've spoken about, but other areas as well. And that led on to our study, which Patrick will now talk about, so I'll pass you over to him.
Thank you, Ian, and it's great to be with you all and tell you more about this project we were very passionate about. It must be said at the outset that chaplains in general around the world offer various forms of great pastoral care, but the style and delivery understandably differs in some ways due to the culture that each finds himself in. So I'll briefly outline the Scottish context, then explain how the service developed with MND work in Tayside, what was actually done, and then how did we evaluate this. Ian referenced the national framework from Scottish Government regarding spiritual care, and this has been in the works for a while, and these aims outlined have indeed been adopted by NHS Tayside for a while and are a part of Scottish chaplaincy. But one of the issues it tries to cover is that religious care, at its best, should always be spiritual, but spiritual care is not necessarily religious. There's natural preconceptions when it comes to chaplains, and that would be that people would only use a chaplain if they were seeking some kind of religious need. You'll even see on our webpage for NHS Tayside that we try to show the various forms and reasons why someone might contact a chaplain. We often say that spiritual care is more than you think. Chaplains are here to offer person-centered care during times of illness, transition, and loss, regardless of someone's background. It might surprise some of you to see that our overall offerings, even in Tayside, amongst the full breadth of our chaplains, over 80% of the work is not faith-based in any way. 20% definitely is, and we're so glad that we could offer that. With MND work, it ended up being just around 7%. And the reason that that was religious, or that religious care offering was given, was because those were the needs that were expressed by the patients involved. The primary reason that Ian contacted us, though, to develop this service was outlined in this next quote. Within health and social care, it's widely accepted that questions of meaning, purpose, hope, or lack of it, identity, and relationships can become acute when well-being and stability are challenged or threatened by illness, injury, or loss in oneself or a loved one. At such times, people often need spiritual care. Ian referenced earlier the series of bereavements that happen to someone going through MND and their family's experience. Now, I was privileged to come alongside the service as we were asking the question that how do we support these constantly rolling and cumulative losses and bereavement experiences? I often work in images and stories, so the image of a train really came to mind for me. And you may have been in a situation where you've seen a train going by at a level crossing and just wondered, how long is this train? How much are they carrying? This became the understanding of all these numerous losses that someone would go through. And we were asking the question, well, what would it look like to put in a different form of pastoral care than was already being offered in MND services? I love this next image because it shows a track diverging. And even if the final location is the same, the journey will be different because of the landscape that each track goes through. So this is the way of our thinking as we try to develop embedding pastoral care within MND service offerings in Tayside. What we did was we started by just a few referrals a month, and this was a lot of just trial and just listening to what patients and families' needs were. As we continued on this journey, we started to understand more of what those needs looked like as they expressed and told us more, and this then, of course, increased. As such, we realized we were going to need a dedicated resource. It wasn't going to be enough just to have a few referrals here and there. So we applied to the Gordon Aikman Foundation and were successful in getting funding to conduct this project for dedicated chaplaincy support for 1 day a week. As such, this became a full team embeddedness approach. We decided to view it not just as a referral to a chaplain or into spiritual care, but that the chaplain was very much a part of the MDT for motor neuron disease. They were part of the team. There was the consultant, the specialist nurses, and the family and patient support as delivered by a chaplain. There were challenges, of course, to this, one of which I already mentioned was the vast increase in numbers of people needing the support, but then also how do we make that accessible? The language. If you ask someone, would you like to see a chaplain, you often get all the preconceptions about what that might mean, as we mentioned earlier. So what we began to do is say we have someone who offers support for patients and families. His name is Patrick, and he's a chaplain. Now, this is not hiding the fact that I was a chaplain. I've never done that, but it was trying to present it before patients and families in a way that was accessible and they could receive. This then became part of a full journey approach. I wouldn't just begin supporting someone at various complex stations or moments, but actually from diagnosis. And we found that those I was able to support from diagnosis, I was able to offer support on a continuous basis all through their journey, up to the point of death for many situations, and then bereavement supports for families afterwards. This was done in a number of ways. I would offer what I called person-centered versatility. If they needed or were more comfortable speaking on the phone, we would do this. If they were coming in for a hospital appointment or a clinical procedure, then I would meet them there. But by and large, most of the support was delivered in the home. And then occasionally an alternate setting for family members who might want a little bit of respite from that caring environment. This was delivered through pastoral listening in all these situations. Assets and values-based approaches, as in whatever they presented to me. I never went in with an agenda. We would explore things from the past, those current and present losses that they're accumulating, and potentially their anxiety or concern about the future for themselves or their loved ones. As this developed, I became more aware of what MND did to an individual and a family. I learned so much from the nurses and from Ian. And we were able to offer a much more comprehensive support service as we worked better together. We would notice, as I'll explain in just a second, a transition of support from just patient to patient and family to sometimes more family. And this was then even made more apparent when there was continued bereavement support that was needed. The breakdown here shows you that it did end up being more family that needed support than the patients. not in any way ignoring the patients at all. It's just that as the support needs were identified, it became apparent that the family needed a bit more depending on where the illness was in its journey. Sometimes you'll see on the right that this was patient and family together, or just patient, or just the family, and then a huge section of bereavement support. When we wanted to evaluate this, we were aware that it was working. We were hearing that it was working. We knew this anecdotally, but we wanted to get official data to show this. So we looked at using the Scottish Spiritual Care PROM, the Patient Reported Outcome Measure. It's a wonderful tool being used all around Scotland to determine the efficacy of chaplaincy interventions. It did show us some results and that the support was valued. However, it didn't tell us why, and this came from a number of different reasons. One of which is it is a snapshot at any given period of time at how someone's doing. And because of that continued journey and each of those additional bereavements and losses over the course of someone's MND journey, it just became clear that this wasn't going to be the best tool, albeit a wonderful tool in other situations. So we moved to semi-structured interviews. There's a number of benefits from doing this. We used a alongside service called the NHS Tayside Listening Service. They very skilled listeners and practitioners who were able to conduct these interviews for us. They interviewed one current patient with their spouse, one wife of a current patient, although the patient themselves were unable because of their illness at the time, one son or daughter of a patient, one bereaved spouse, and one bereaved son or daughter. As they delivered this, it was very much a person-centered, compassionate environment. They were able to sit with people, usually on Microsoft Teams, and meet them where they were, asking some pre-prepared questions, but also allowing the space and flexibility to just listen and hear whatever the patients or families wanted to express themselves. Another reason to believe this worked so well is that it actually mirrored the support that was given. It indeed did give us some wonderful data to show why this worked. And some of this we already had in our thinking, is that we're able to provide tools in a different way from the chaplaincy spiritual care approach. It was able to help them see things in a different lens and talk about things that they might not have discussed in a clinical environment. Being the versatility to be able to do this wherever. And also that full diagnosis experience was also highlighted a number of times. We also spoke to the specialist nurses on what the benefit was for them. And again, they offer wonderful pastoral care, but they still have that clinical hat that they need to follow through with, and sometimes weren't able to offer as much, so an actual need to sit and listen with someone. And also explore issues of hope, purpose, meanings. Again, the patient's agenda, not my agenda or anyone else's agenda. So the full journey and how this looked, we were able to see that it was deeply valued by all. It was partly become a non-clinical way of being from that spiritual care, pastoral care approach. The ability to journey through each of the additional losses as they occurred in real time. That this was not an external service, but as part of the overall support from M&D, and that it was better when it was done through the full journey. And it was mutually beneficial to staff as well, as I learned from them and I was able to support them as well. I want to thank everybody who was involved in this, and I look forward to talking more about this and answering your questions. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi, Patrick. That was phenomenal. Such an important topic. One thing that jumped out at me was when you said spiritual care is more than you think. And you're right. And that there's a difference between spirituality and religion. I think sometimes those things get conflated and we don't see those differences. So thank you. Love to take some questions from the audience. Anyone down there? Oh, okay, sorry. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Joe from MND Victoria. I was just curious how many people engaged in the program over that time period, and how did you structure it in terms of, you said 1 day a week was available to this program. So, and I'm thinking of this because we're looking at some emotional support for people that we support in Australia, and just kind of thinking about how did you manage to sort of work within, did you say, okay, I'm available on a Friday, or were you flexible across? a week?
That is an excellent question, and thanks for asking it. And it's one that I spent a better part of 2 years trying to figure out. I would say it ended up being around, each year we had around about 80 appointments. Now those ranged from anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, based on whatever the family or the patient needed at the time. I tried my best to keep them to a specific day, but at the end of the day, it's based on the patient's and family's needs. So I think what I had to do was be versatile within myself and communicate really well with the specialist nurses and the family. And we kind of co-create and work something out. I know that's not a definitive answer. I really wish I could give you more of a solid one. But I think what I noticed was if I just kept communicating and offering certain times, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, well, we would find something else. The only struggle I would say is that once we opened that door and people knew that they had the opportunity for that support, people did take us up on it. And then it continued to grow. So in reality, I tried to keep it to 1 day a week. It did often encroach on the rest of more than a day's time, just because there was so much need.
Thank you.
That's excellent. Any other questions in the room? Yes. No, there's someone coming with a microphone.
Is that working? Excellent. I wondered, I'm interested that you use the word bereavement for the journey of people going through MND. Do you purposely use that rather than anticipatory grief? Do you see there's a specific difference between those two things?
Again, excellent question. It's one that we've been wrestling with for quite a bit over the last couple of years. Often, and I'm not saying it's narrow and limited, but I would hear people use the term anticipatory grief, talking about the emotions they're feeling now because of the often singular event that's coming or events that are coming. And one of the things that was noticing as we were sitting with patients and family, it was often the momentary loss that they have now lost this ability to do this. They've lost the ability to play with their grandkids on the floor. They've lost, and the pain that we were seeing or the struggle was often about that, not necessarily about that which was coming. That was definitely in with the mix, as humans are. We have all those things within us. But it was often the support that was needed for each of those losses. So between Ian and I, we started talking about them as continual bereavements. And they have lost this, and they're grieving for that. And now they've lost this, and they're grieving for that. While also keeping in mind that there is that thoughts towards the future that, of course, occurs. And so it's not diminishing anticipatory grief, but it's just saying that it's much broader than that, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, yes, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We have an online question.
How did people react or accept your role in terms of that religious spirituality approach? Were they apprehensive?
It's very interesting. Now, in Scotland and in Tayside specific, we have the Scottish approach, which I tried to outline. But even with that approach, it's a term that carries so much weight in history, and that's understandable. And what we noticed initially was how it was presented. The nurses who were quite excited to offer this, but weren't quite sure at the beginning how to do it, and so it was almost apologetic. We have a chaplain if you might be interested in that type of support. So it's almost apologetically trying to, which I don't know about you guys, that when somebody kind of approaches you that cautiously, it doesn't incite you with confidence to want to take that up. So we just changed the language, which reversed it without hiding anything. It's like, we have someone on our team, they do patient and family support. They'll do it in your home. And this is who he is. This is what and yes, he is a chaplain, but this is the type of work he does with us. So it was just trying to, again, make that accessible. But every now and then, of course, people would start a conversation with, well, you know, I'm not religious, right? And I was like, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. We're only going to discuss what you'd like to discuss. So I hope that kind of explains some of that.
I think it was a fantastic. explanation. I think we have time for one very quick question over here in the corner. Yeah.
Hello, Patrick. My name is Hjördís, and I'm a hospital chaplain in Iceland.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure if you told us already, but I was wondering, do you, in the initial interviews, are they structured like with pre-decided questions?
In the semi-structured interviews that we did at the end to evaluate, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 4 questions that we kind of planned, but the people conducting the interviews did so in a way that was, well, they're skilled at what they do. So they would ask the question, but based off the answer, they would allow the patient or family member to elaborate as much as they needed, or if they wanted to include something else. But the initial questions were, can you tell us about the experience of pastoral support you received from the chaplain? And then when the support was offered, was it the right time? Is there another time that would have been more helpful? Would you recommend this type of support? And is there anything else you would like to add that would be helpful for us to know? So you'll see that all the questions are in themselves quite permissive, is, hey, tell us what you think. Because that's what we had seen from the previous questions from the prom, is it told us they valued it, but it couldn't tell you why in the way it was done. And so we knew we needed to get into that dialogue, that conversation, and hey, well, what really mattered? What was really important to you? So again, they asked some of the structured questions, but with the ability to elaborate and add in whatever they needed to.
Thank you. Thank you for such a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Ian. So now we will welcome up Dr. Himanji Sain and Ajay Gupta for their presentation, Innovative Footwear Solutions for ALS MND.
Friends, I'm audible. Yeah. So good evening, friends. So this is Ajay Gupta, and with me is Dr. Himanji Sain. We both represent Asha Co Foundation from India. We are the only, rather, we are the first registered organization in India which started working in the field of ALS and MND. We, in association, in collaboration with IIT Bombay, like IIT Bombay stands for Indian Institute of Technology. It's like our MIT for engineering. So with their design team, in collaboration with them, we came up with a prototype for to cater these 4 foot problems: muscular atrophy, foot drop, hammer toe, and swollen foot. Our prime focus was to cater the problem of foot drop. So what happens in foot drop is that when a person with a foot drop attempts to walk, they mostly ends up dragging their foot. In order to prevent that, they need higher ground clearance, which means they have to lift their feet more as compared to what normal individuals do, which means they get fatigued very easily, and in a single duration, they can walk only few steps. So they have to walk for shorter durations. Then they again have to sit down, then get up, and then walk. So what we thought that if we can do something where we can automatically lift their 4 foot when they attempt to walk, then this problem can be resolved physically, at a physical level. So we did a lot of background research. We did market study. There were existing products in the market. We tried to look into those, what are the issues with those products are. Then we came up with some of the designs. We did user interviews. We did some prototype testing and all those stuff. I won't go into detail in those because I know Sarah is she's there. So these are the three product types which are already there in the market, which tries to solve this problem. All these products have their own complications, but the common problem is that they are bulky, the aesthetic look is not there, then it's highly discomfort, Apart from AFO shoes, the internal splints and the external straps, they can't be used individually. We have to use them with a footwear. So we thought, why don't we combine this with the footwear and develop something which serves both the purpose. So yeah, next, I think Dr. Himangi will take up from here.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Himangi Sane.
No.
We are trying to use a new technology, so please bear with us. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Himangi Sane.
Hello Divan, I'm Dr. Himangi Sane.
Okay, it's working. So today we are talking about a new footwear. Okay. So today we are talking about a new footwear.
So today we are talking about a new footwear.
Right. So as my friend Ajay told you about her different problem.
Smerar of my friend Ades to review about the difference of lead.
Ignore this. Don't record this.
I think it went working. Yeah. So I think one big applause for Victor, who is very painstakingly working with technology for all of our entertainment. One big applause. Thank you. Yeah. So, in the new footwear, we have considered the primary user, that is the airless patient, and along with that, the caregiver, because it is very important that whenever we are wearing the clothes, the one who is making us wear also is more comfortable with it. All her shoes which are totally closed, putting her shoes on can also become very frustrating. So we have taken that into account and made it an open design. Also we consider the benefits like replacing embarrassment with confidence, provide freedom of choice, improve comfort level, and achieve a state of well-being. And functional benefits like assist in foot drop, prevent toe drag, help in swelling, even aesthetically appealing, easy to wear by self or other, and lightweight. Next is something. So our IIT team considered IIT students and their professors. Along with them, we had our team of rehab therapists and patients who worked together as a multidisciplinary team in from the stage of conceptualization and ideation. So it was a holistic approach. Next. So this footwear has a very unique ankle support member, which is embedded in the shoe, which is on the back of the ankle and on the sole. So it has a push and pull mechanism. So whenever the patient lifts the foot arm, the soul member will get lifted automatically, pushing her foot up. And now, when her patient will put her foot down, he will get the heel strike and not a toe drag. So that means the foot drop is automatically negated. And when her foot is put down, with the weight of the patient, it will become flat. Next. So it was all started with the patient-centered design, and it was co-designed with all the stakeholders. And our idea was to make a dignified footwear for all the ALS MND patients. And they are catered to all the emotional well-being also. Next. So overall well-being, inducing positive attitude in the patient and health, along with the functional approach of emotional well-being. Next. And of course, we have to add a little bit of fashion. So we made different types of footwear. Next, where we see a little color added to get understand if they have to wear it in snow, so it has to be totally covered, but still totally can be open. And little straps and color added. So it becomes more aesthetically appealing. Next. So the final design has ankle support, a fabric wrap style enclosure which can be completely open. It has an all-out support for comfort. It has a toe cover so that the foot does not slip out. And it has a raised front outsole open to prevent a toe drag. Next. So our shoe has a unique edge over other existing products in the market by providing a complete footwear underneath, which is easy to use and maintain, lightweight, aesthetically appealing, dignified, and gives patients a freedom of choice, and it can be a scalable design to add multiple options. Next. So we do parent feedback where they notice a different while walking. They feel a sickness in their foot length. They found ground clearance better. They also had the wrap style enclosure was easy to wear. It is simple and lightweight. And I showed the shoe in our partner meeting 2 months ago, and over there we got a very good response. A couple of patients tried the shoe, and I remember one of the patients after wearing and walking with these shoes, he said, "I like walking again." Yeah. So it was very satisfying. Next. So, although we kept in our mind this pattern while designing, but it can be used by anyone who have a food job. Even the people like CPM, MS Polio, Parkinson, and I would say even elderly population. So the user is a wide area. When the people head on, automatically the matter causes a mild symptom, which can cause a fall. So even the normal individual who have any problem with foot drop and next. So we had a plan for the award for the project, and we were selected and top the final Eagles Government Award for Innovation. Next. So thank you, and yes, this is a prototype, and we are going to the market for manufacturing, and my friend will tell you about that.
Okay, so right now the strategy. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we can go for the questions then. Yeah. So right now, what our strategy is like, we will be producing 100 or 150 units. We'll be distributing it as a free sample to the people who need, and after 6 months of their usage, we'll take more feedbacks from them, and then incorporate those feedbacks into this product, and then we'll go into the market with production. We have already tied up with 1 or 2 manufacturers who are manufacturing for top brands like Hush Puppies, Scholl's, and all those, nationally, internationally. So everything is lined up, just that we have to distribute the free samples and take the feedback. Then we'll be good to go to the market.
Well, we just want to, what a phenomenal presentation. Thank you, Dr. Sain. Thank you, AJ, very much. Let's open it up for some questions to see anybody in the room have any questions for Dr. Sain or Mr. Gupta. Anyone? Anybody online have any questions? I don't want to miss anyone.
Yeah, one there.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Marcela from ALS Association in Colombia. If you're saying you're going to distribute them freely, can we help out in the ALS associations? Does our feedback help you, or is it?
That was your question.
Or you see, we're connected. Or do you need it to be just feedback from patients in India?
No, we are open to anyone and everyone. See, this is a very, this is not a mass product. It is a niche product, and the market size is already very small. If we just focus on the Indian market, we won't be able to make it commercially viable for the manufacturer. It's like we can't put in all the money. We need manufacturer to help us out, and they will have some commercial impetus for them. So our idea is to work with all and every alliance member, whoever is willing to work with us, so that we can take this product to as many people as we can, so that the project becomes sustainable. Our motive is to help people, but somebody who's going to manufacture it for us, they will have some different motive also. They need some profit area. So if we just focus on India market, I don't think it will be a viable product. So we have to focus worldwide.
So if we want the product, we talk to you guys.
Yeah, just drop us an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? I see a hand here. No? Was Dr. Sain going to say
Hi. Hi, I just wanted to make sure you guys were checking the boxes on intellectual property and making sure that nobody steals these wonderful ideas.
We have design patent for this product.
Okay.
You have already done that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd get that going. And then the other thing too is, do you have the capital to scale at this point, or are you looking for investors?
Yeah, we are looking for investors. For alone for us, it won't be possible. So we need help, support from everyone who wants to join, so that we can make it more viable and socially viable. It's like a social commerce project.
Yeah.
So it has to be that way.
Yeah, venture philanthropy.
I'll share my number with you.
Okay. We'll do a little mini Shark Tank here.
Love it. Anybody
All right.
else in the room? We can do it.
Welcome.
So our collaborators are welcome.
A mini Shark Tank.
Welcome.
Do we have another question?
Linda from California. I just wanted to celebrate your creativity and innovation and the gift that you're bringing to the community, so thank you. Also, I'm not absolutely clear. Does one pair of shoes adapt to be toeless and then you can put a toe in it, or you can put a cover for snow and it could be in the rain, or do you have different pairs of shoes for different purposes?
Actually, it will be different pair of shoes for different purposes. Initially, we'll be coming with two designs, one for male, one for female. And after that, we have once we have the product market mix ready for us and the target audience, then we'll come up further designs to cater all those issues, the snow and all those stuff. What we can do is that we can rethink on the design part and do something to cover the front portion so that the single design can be used for multi-purpose. Yeah, we'll think on that definitely.
Hola though.
Show them. Show them.
Okay, sure. I'll go to each of them.
They want to know if you could pass it around. Do you
Yeah,
think
sure.
is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think we have one very quick question online, and then we're going to have to move forward.
Does the shoe need to come in sizes?
Yeah, it's me according to your shoe size.
Yeah, it would be according to your shoe side.
Any other questions?
He wants to use his voice machine. We are out of time, but please, everybody, always, as with everything, please follow up with both AJ and Dr. Sain. We cannot thank you enough. Good luck. You had a little mini Shark Tank going here. It's going to happen. Thank you. All right.
I just want to thank Dr. Sain. It's just been incredible. This is completely new technology. It's never been used like this anywhere in the world except just now. And the courage that you had to say, yeah, let's do it. And it's like, well, we're here and we're doing it. And all sorts of things went wrong, and those guys did a fantastic job. But you did the most amazing job. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Wow, we have Dr. Sain leaving the stage. We're going to move on to our next presentation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. maybe I just made her doctor, I'm sorry. Joanne Nunez from Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, PTSD, and ALS.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for being here today. I'm going to go right into my slides. This is all of my information. So just to disclose, I really have nothing to disclose. I have no sales or professional biases. I used to be a certified clinical trauma professional, which just means I had CCTP after my name, after the LCSW on that previous slide. I was that for 2 years, and then I just chose not to renew the certifications. But the fun part is they couldn't take the knowledge away from me, so that's still there. I have been working with people diagnosed with PTSD since 2008, mostly active duty service members, but also some military veterans and civilians. I use humor to cope. I will try to keep both the humor light and this presentation light for you. But all joking aside, if you need to leave this presentation, if you're physically at the conference, I can't see you. So you don't even have to fake a phone call. Just get up and leave. If you are virtual, just go ahead and mute me so you don't miss the next presenter, turn on some music, take a walk for 15 minutes, whatever you need to do for your mental health. That is the most important. Very quickly, I'm going to talk about how a therapist would diagnose a person with PTSD. I am using a family friend who said it was okay for me to use her example as long as I didn't give any identifying information. So this is not a patient, it's a family friend. In May of 2015, this happened. My friend accompanied another friend to a large city every Saturday. And while her friend was in a college class for 4 to 5 hours, she would go to Panera and work on schoolwork, things like that. And then they would meet up after the class and kind of hang out in the big city. So this went on for like a year, no issues. Well, one day she was at her Panera-like restaurant and 2 men approached her and they grabbed her laptop, her purse, her cell phone, her wallet, basically everything that they could grab, and then ran out of the store. So she was directly exposed to a threatened or fear of actual either death or bodily harm. She wasn't sure what was going to happen. Definitely was at least worried that she was going to be harmed. And then she had that loss of stolen property, which makes you feel very exposed. So she definitely meets criteria A. Criteria B, she had basically all of these, especially nightmares and flashbacks. So she meets criteria B. Criterion C, she avoided everything that was related to the trauma. She didn't go to Panera's anymore. She didn't go to that big city or any big city until after her therapy. And she didn't really want to talk about the trauma. So avoidance. She had isolated feelings. She was a very bright and cheerful person before this event, and you could definitely see the negative and depressed shift that it took on her. She often blamed herself, like, how could I be so stupid? I know better. I was in such and such big city. I've heard, how tourists are preyed on, and I didn't think any better, so this was my fault kind of thing. So definitely criterion D. She was extremely hypervigilant if she had to go out, driving to work, going to work, places where she was reasonably safe and didn't have anything to worry about. She still had an extreme startle response, difficulty sleeping, and difficulty concentrating at work. And then her therapist was pretty easily able to rule out F, G, and H. She started therapy about 2 months after it happened, and we know that it did affect her work and her social status, and then we can roll out H right away. So when I was going through grad school, I came up under the DSM-4 text revision, which just is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Text Revision. Then in 2013 or 2014, they released the DSM-5. Anytime they release a new edition, all previous editions are null and void. Meaning, if I'm going to diagnose you now with PTSD, I need to follow the DSM-5 criteria. Why is this significant? It's really not. I'm going to get to that in my next slide, except that if we're looking at our patients, but especially our caregivers, the DSM-5 removed criterion A that said a death of a family member or close friend due to natural causes is no longer included. Well, you can say Joanna ALS is not a natural cause, but most therapists would have taken any long-term chronic medical illness and either the diagnosis of that or the death of that and called that a trauma in criterion A. I like to look at it this way. Trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing event that makes you lose your coping skills. You are now not able to cope. And I took a trauma class one time, and a licensed professional counselor in North Carolina, Dwayne Bowers, said, trauma is in the eye of the beholder, which I subscribe to. What's traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you, and vice versa. So let's look at the brain for just a minute. This is how trauma affects the brain. We all have these 3 parts of the brain. Our reptilian brain, everybody has, from a lizard all the way up to a human. Okay? The limbic brain, there's been some studies that suggest dogs, cats, certain monkeys, chimpanzees can show feeling and emotion. So they would also have a limbic brain. The one thing that sets us apart from the animals, as they say, is our neocortex, which we should all be using today, our thinking brain. Why is this important? When the reptilian brain is activated, that is your trauma response. So we've all seen or heard those stories of a car falls on a child and the mom, who's like 98 pounds, is able to lift the car heroically off of her child and rescue her child all of in like 30 seconds, okay? Her reptilian brain took over. It shut down every other part of her brain. Her body was flooded with cortisol and adrenaline to give her that boost of strength and energy she needed. And she was in a trauma response at that time. She might have experienced fear, but if she wasn't processing it in the limbic brain. It was just the fight or flight going on. And she definitely wasn't thinking. She wasn't doing any calculation. She wasn't going, well, I'm 98 pounds and the car is 2,000. So if I use a Velocity Raptor, you can tell I'm not a scientist or a mathematician, right? But she's not doing calculations. She is just getting that car off of her child. So she was in reptilian brain. And you might be thinking, well, Joanna, that doesn't make a ton of sense for me because my patients aren't in trauma when they see me. We'll get there in a minute, but let's use the example of my friend. Her trauma would have happened somewhere off of this screen. It's not a button. So in May of 2015, the traumatic robbery happened to her, right? Let's say she never got therapy for it. She never processed that trauma. She would start at green. Her stress would be increased. Her cortisol production would be going like crazy. Because remember, it probably kicked in during that robbery experience. If she's not processing it, it slowly leads to red, where PTSD is formed, and she is in this constant state of stress, which takes her over to orange. She's now living with PTSD. Cortisol is flooding her body all of the time, and she is living in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn instead of rest or digest. So remember what I said, if the reptilian brain is activated, the neocortex and the limbic brain are not. So she would have problems concentrating. She would have problems remembering. If you have a patient that has their trauma response activated, you're going to see similar things in your patient. So let's look at our patients. From a PTSD lens, we can have three types of patients. We could have a patient with absolutely no PTSD. Great. We'll talk about them in a minute. We could have someone that has a PTSD issue prior to their ALS diagnosis. So let's say my friend had that burglary situation happen. Maybe she processed the trauma, maybe she didn't, but then 10 years later, she gets an ALS diagnosis. Trauma was already with her before the ALS diagnosis, okay? And then we have trauma because of the ALS diagnosis. And this one's a little controversial, but we'll get there. So if you have a patient with no trauma, great, but it's not over. Just continue to monitor them for symptoms of trauma, okay? All those criteria we were talking about at the beginning. Use a PTSD screening tool. Now, you don't need to do it every time they visit clinic, like a FERS. You can just do this once a year, once every 6 months. However, if you notice a lot of symptoms, or if you know of a traumatic event that happens after the diagnosis, absolutely have someone do a tool just to screen. And then, if a traumatic event happened, have them do it for a couple of clinics to see how they're responding. If they had the PTSD previously to their diagnosis, kind of what I said before, they might be in a trauma state and they're not going to absorb everything you're saying. Maybe they were coping and they can't do those things to cope anymore, right? So let's look at if I'm traumatized and I go to the gym, or I go on a run, or I play with my dog, or I paint and I sculpt, or I smoke. Maybe I smoke pot, maybe I drink, maybe I go on a long drive. Can I do those things once I have PTSD? Once I have ALS? Well, of course I can, but physically my limitations are going to change over time, which brings me to my middle point. Get them into therapy or let them continue with their evidence-based trauma therapy, but think about the physical challenges. If I drive myself to therapy every week, how long is that going to last before I need a caregiver to drive me? Which is fine. But then we need to look at the therapist's office. Is the office ADA compliant? Do they have an elevator? Do they have stairs? Are there hard transitions? Does a wheelchair fit into the office space? If not, we need to look at teletherapy and how a caregiver can get them set up for teletherapy and ensure their privacy during that time. So let's look at that third category, which was ALS is the trauma. You can develop PTSD from a medical trauma, and I realize I'm using the word trauma in two different ways here. So if I fall and break my leg, I have suffered a leg trauma to the doctors and the EMS that are responding to me. The trauma was to my leg. But if during that fall, maybe I had pain, I had fear, I freaked out, that could also be traumatic to me, making me develop PTSD. That being said, your ALS diagnosis, and I've unfortunately heard it from many patients, can be traumatic. So how do we handle that? We have to be patient with them, and that's not a pun. Unfortunately, we might be the trigger, and that sucks, right? Like, we want to help them. But if you're the person that told them, hi, I'm sorry to tell you, you have ALS, your entire staff might be the trigger. The building, the drive to the ALS clinic, all of that could be a trigger. So let's help them. I know in the US, when COVID hit, we had to get really creative. ALS clinics were always in person before that. Well, we had to pivot. We had to do different things, right? We started telehealth. We started some in-home health visits. So what can we use now to help this traumatized person so that they will still come to their ALS clinic visits? Do they need a companion? Do they need to do it partially online and partially in person? Get creative. And the last point, I would hope none of our providers would do this, and obviously our caregivers would not do this knowingly, but acknowledge their fears. I can see how this would be so frustrating to a caregiver. If your loved one was diagnosed with ALS, of course you would want them to get the best treatment they could, and you would want them to go to their ALS clinic. But if they are struggling with trauma from that ALS clinic, they're going to want to avoid it, possibly. And so that can be almost like a fight. Like, well, you need to go to clinic. Well, I don't want to go to clinic. So help them cope and figure out a way to go to clinic or a way to still get treatment without shaming or belittling them. This goes right into, I promise I don't get paid every time I say evidence-based trauma treatment, but I am that passionate about it. It has to be evidence-based, okay? And there's a slew of them. They can all be done over, well, most of them can be done over telehealth. I'd say 90% can be done over telehealth. I do EMDR. I never dreamed I would be able to do that over a computer. Guess what? COVID taught me how to do it over a computer, okay? If someone is saying, hey, standing on your head for 5 minutes a day cures PTSD, that is not a trauma treatment that's evidence-based. Do the research. Have your social worker help you find some evidence-based treatments. And like I said earlier, respect that they might not be coping the way they used to cope. Help them find new ways to cope that they're in control of. And even if you're the therapist, you know this, don't make them talk about the trauma, because that's just re-traumatizing. Those are my references. This is my contact information. This is stolen straight from my email signature, part of ALS United. I am a care services coordinator. Right now, as I'm recording this in November, my phone number is only voice. But my team at North Carolina, especially my awesome bosses, Kara and Dave, are working super hard on getting us text enabled so we can text with you and text with our patients. So all I want for Christmas is text. I'll give you an update when I go live here in a minute if I have text yet, but that's okay if I don't. Just email me. Honestly, email is the fastest way, but if you need to call, please just remember that that phone number is voice only. So I'm going to stop here because I want to take your questions, and thank you again for your attendance today.
Thank you for that fabulous talk. Hi, Joanne. How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. We're all very excited to hear about this really, really important topic. Very complex discussion, and very important. Doesn't get brought up a lot. I want to open it up to questions in the room. Does anybody have any questions for Joanne? Oh, we have one online, I believe. Yeah?
do you find those who've lost speech ability may be more challenging to help cope, especially if they had PTSD prior to ALS?
Yes, absolutely. Even if they were not in evidence-based therapy, we process our trauma just daily, talking to people, even if we're not intending to do that. So when we lose the ability to speak, that can definitely impact coping mechanisms. That's something I'm passionate about and want people to understand. If as you lose your ability to speak, let's find other ways. Let's use the eye gaze. Let's get on to support groups online. Finding ways to process that trauma without speaking is very important.
That's a really great question.
Yes, I have the microphone.
You have I didn't know. Sarah.
Yes, this is Sarah Feldman with the ALS Hope Foundation. So my question is about caregivers. Have you found something similar with caregivers? Because we have had like a caregiver who won't ever come back to the clinic because they were there when the diagnosis was given, etc.
Absolutely. Like I said, if we're looking at it from just a institution-based DSM-5, that wouldn't meet criteria. This is how I look at it. If it's acting like trauma, let's treat it like trauma. The research shows even without a correct PTSD diagnosis, it will improve. So yes, we have seen both primary trauma in caregivers of patients. They want nothing to do with the clinic, nothing to do with the people. And again, that says nothing about our wonderful caregivers, wonderful team members and clinics. It's all about that was a traumatizing event for that caregiver. The other thing we have to be very aware of is what they call secondary trauma or caregiver burnout, which I know I'm not sure the timeline. You're either having a presentation about that or you had a presentation about that. And that's just something I've also done lectures about. And it's imperative that we as a team, as social workers, as everybody in that multidisciplinary team, watch the caregiver, make sure they're giving support and getting support so that they don't burn out and start showing those secondary trauma symptoms.
That's excellent. Any other? Oh, we've got two. I'm not sure whose hand came up first. I think Rick's did.
Hello. My name is Rick, and I just wanted to say thank you for saying that EMDR can be done in a variety of ways. Both my sister and I had EMDR as part of treatment from childhood PTSD, and neither of us could do it the conventional eye movement. In both cases, the therapist had to tap alternate knees. So EMDR works multiple ways, and it doesn't surprise me that it works online. But I'm so glad to hear that said, so that other people know that is true. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes.
Hi, Jen DiMartino, ALS1 in Boston. Just a quick question. This is actually really timely because I just received an email from someone whose dad has a lot of PTSD, who's just lost her mom, his wife, a couple months ago. And so I think that there's obviously a lot of PTSD both going through the disease and after. But given the global shortage of mental health professionals, what are your recommendations, if any, or anyone in the room, on how to support people who really need help and there's just nowhere to go? Thank you.
We are definitely seeing that in the U.S. I know you said you're from the Chicago area. Yes. It's frustrating because we want to refer out. We want to find those readily available therapists that can do, or support groups that can do these kind of evidence-based treatments. And we're finding wait lists, or we're finding therapists that have just shuttered their practices because of stress and burnout. I think this is not something I can answer super easily because I don't have a solution for this pandemic of burnout in the mental health field, but I would say this is where we start looking at support groups, not just necessarily our ALS support groups, but our PTSD support groups, online and in person. If we can't push them into evidence-based trauma therapy due to the lack of that right now. We look and find other ways to support them. Can something be taken off their plate so they don't burn out as quickly? Can they get into another type of therapy that, while it won't necessarily treat the PTSD, it might make day-to-day living a little bit better? And I think, again, unfortunately, we're just pushed to be creative and do what we can as long as we're staying inside of our scope as treatment professionals.
I think that's excellent advice. Looking beyond, sometimes beyond ALS specific, is where we can also find some really excellent resources. Thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you all. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Moving forward, we now have a lightning talk on emergency preparedness from Jessica Mabe at the International Alliance online.
Australia is on fire. 90% of all buildings have been damaged.
The World Health Organization today declared the coronavirus a global pandemic.
A volcano has erupted near a scenic lake in the Philippines.
Deadly series of tornadoes that ravaged the Midwest.
Violent storms and powerful floodwaters destroying entire towns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Mabe, Programs Coordinator for the International Alliance of ALS and MND Associations. And today I will be sharing with you the emergency preparedness toolkit we have available for people living with ALS and MND and their caregivers. Emergency situations occur every day. They are caused by many things, such as natural hazards like floodings and fires, diseases and pandemics, pests, and human activities like fire, explosions, spills, and wars. These situations are specifically difficult situations for people living with ALS and MND and their families. Being prepared is critical. Emergency preparedness is also aligned with the fundamental right for people living with ALS and MND, which is to have the right for the best quality of life possible. This planning will help PALS and their caregivers be ready for their unique needs and circumstances in the event of an emergency. On May of this year, a multi-stakeholder group representing various communities within the International Alliance of ALS and MND Associations network gathered for a roundtable focused on emergency preparedness for people living with ALS and MND and the organizations that serve them around the world. Two key outcomes came from this roundtable. The first one was the importance for associations to have an emergency preparedness plan. And to help them, we made available a template for them to fill and edit as their capacity and infrastructure allows. A toolkit, and the second one was a toolkit for people living with ALS and MND to help them assess their own personal risk. Today, we want to share with you these resources available in the Alliance website for people living with ALS, MND, and their caregivers. In the immediate aftermath of a disaster, it is important to consider the unique needs of a person living with ALS and MND. Our Emergency Preparedness Toolkit outlines the most important things to consider for PALS and CALS when assessing their personal risk and making preparedness plans. The toolkit includes where to start checklist to help them start the process of building awareness of what should be considered to build their individualized plan based on their unique circumstances. We also include a medical emergency card, which was an important recommendation that came out of the roundtable. And as you can see, it's not just about the medical data. It also includes a message from the PALS and CALS asking to please work with them as they are knowledgeable about their unique condition. The toolkit also includes a list of forms that include an emergency telephone list, a medical summary table, medicine chart, a table to complete with their personal support network, an emergency supplies checklist, an exercise to complete their own personal assessment, and a checklist of disability-related supplies and special equipment. You can access all the research and more in our website. The QR code that you see on screen will take you directly to the webpage where you will find the resources and videos from emergency experts. I also want to take this opportunity to invite you to see our poster in the virtual poster hall. And I want to thank you for your time, and we encourage you to share these resources. Being prepared in an emergency is critical for people living with ALS-MND. Thank you.
I know.
We'll test if my voice works.
That was fantastic. Does anybody have any questions for Jess from the audience?
Oh, perfect. Short and sweet.
No. I think it was really important. One of the things that I loved was engaging that caregiver piece, because often we just have an emergency notice, but to be able to say, please check in with my caregiver. We do understand the condition. Please make sure that you engage both of us. I think that was a really critical piece, and
yes.
I'm excited to see that you included it.
No, totally, because a lot of the pressure under those unique circumstances falls under the caregiver. So it's important to take, and even as I was evaluating the personal assessment form, and the recommendation is always, you don't need to complete it all in one go because it's a lot to consider. So, do it gradually and, evaluate sort of what is possible, maybe a page at a time, and take measures to make things, to be aware of what you need to consider. Like I myself was completely, I ended up buying an emergency kit because I didn't have one.
Yeah. Oh, we have two questions. Sorry, right back to back.
Okay. Did you have anything for caregivers in this, that maybe an emergency card or something that says, I am a caregiver for someone with ALS-MND, so make sure you check on them too in case they're separated during an emergency?
No, but we will.
Well done.
Thank you. That's a good one. No, we will. We will add that in, definitely. That's a great point. Yeah.
I guess my question is, I think preparedness is great, and if word gets out and everyone's done what they should be doing, that's wonderful. But we all have seen videos of emergencies and people who didn't leave their house before the hurricane or flood or whatever. So what is the resource out there if there's an emergency and you need help, and your medical provider, is it the local philanthropies? Would it be like ALS Association, or would it be...
It varies. It's a great question, and it depends from your region, your community, and that's part of the personal assessment that they need to evaluate with regards to what is accessible to them locally. A lot of the ALS associations actually do have an emergency preparedness plan or are currently working on it. So if you do have access to or are part of an association, definitely reach out to them so that they've got you in their books and their directory, and they're aware of any potential risks that you could be, so that in the event of an emergency, they can reach out to you. But it is important to assess, and that's part of the assessment form, is to understand what's near you, what are the local numbers, who you can call, who within your own network of family and friends can go and check on you in the case of something. So there's different areas that you need to consider, because it's not one size fits all. It will vary from one person to another.
I think we have one more question right in the front. Oh, sorry, did I miss someone over here?
It's just a comment, actually. Going back to the issue of a card, the organisation formerly known as the Carers Trust, who are caring together, produce such a card, and you basically register with them. You get this card. You've got a unique reference number on it, and it says on the back, attention, I look after someone who depends on me for care. If you have an emergency, ring this number.
Can I take a picture of that in a minute?
Yeah, of course you can.
Brilliant. I love it. Carers Trust does some wonderful stuff. John?
I will also add that there is a website called Patient Provider Communication that we started almost 20 years ago now, that was originally developed for looking at communication tools and strategies for people in hospital, but has grown now to also support emergency preparedness, including having communication tools available if under an emergency of some sort, someone's actual tools, materials, devices are not available, if there are power outages, if somebody needs to suddenly take an ambulance and doesn't have the appropriate tools available. And there are many, many different materials, boards with different representations, symbols, texts, many languages, and then lots of tutorials, handouts, videos as well that are on that website. So linking that could certainly augment the incredible work that's already there.
Yeah,
That's
thank you. We will-
fantastic.
There's one over there.
Oh, Kathy in the back.
Mine's a quick question, and Jess, I don't mean to put you on the spot, so just ignore half of my question if you want. Since you took everyone through this process in May, would you give us some idea of how often people should be proactively updating this? And then the second question is, was there anything that rose to the surface for you in terms of like a top tip or something that you should really keep top of mind?
So we all know that the journey of every person, or the progression of ALS in any person, is different. So it's a question of understanding sort of how you have seen things have changed in your own unique situation, and do that as regular as possible depending on what has happened. So we put as a recommendation maybe twice a year, but if you needed to do it more often. For me, it was, I think we're all under that situation where we think nothing's going to happen to us. That's that we hear, oh, happened to someone else. But the world is a little bit angry with us right now. Mother Earth is, and we don't know when, we're going to be in a unique situation. So I think it's, whether you're healthy or you have a diagnosis or whatever your situation is, you do need to go through that assessment and realize, how can you be safe? How can you keep your loved ones safe and make sure that you are prepared?
Excellent. Oh,
I'm not even going to say my name again. I'm just wondering, most of the people here work with patients that have eye gaze communication devices.
Mm-hmm.
When an emergency preparedness goes, usually the power is the first thing that they shut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if in that kit, are you suggesting people have an alternative communication board or something with their eyes and not battery related?
Yeah, we cover that. That's covered in the personal assessment. And it's also, I can't remember in which form it is, but we also say that if you have used different tools with regards to communicate, to have an instruction from the outset that says, this is how I communicate, right? So depending on whether it's an eye gaze, whether you use a tablet, whether you use whichever it is, have instructions and have a backup plan. Because as you say, you don't know what the electricity or when it's going to come back, or whether it got damaged because it was a flood. So that personal assessment is critical because it does take you through these different stages of what you need to consider.
well done. What a wonderful presentation and what an excellent tool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, it is my extreme pleasure that I get to be a part of this final section where we have the presentation of the 2023 Allied Health Professional Award. To present the award, please welcome Marcela Santos. Woo!
Hello. Thank you for being here today. My name is Marcela Santos, and I'm a member of the International Alliance of ALS-MND Associations, and I'm also a board member. It is my privilege and honor to present the Allied Health Professional Award today. The International Alliance introduced the Allied Health Professional Award in 2018 to honor individuals dedicated to outstanding care for those with ALS and MND. This award highlights a commitment to sharing expertise, exploring innovative ideas for enhanced patient care, and acknowledging substantial contributions to advancing ALS and MND clinical management. I would like to present this year's Allied Health Professional Award to a remarkable individual, Dr. Deirdre Murray. Dr. Murray, a research fellow and clinical specialist physiotherapist in neurology at Bowman Hospital, Dublin, has exemplified excellence in the field of ALS-MND care. Her journey has been marked by exceptional achievements that have benefited the global ALS community. Let me tell you more about what she has done. First, Dr. Murray's impact on the quality of life for individuals with ALS-MND is profound. As a member of the MND multidisciplinary team at Bowman Hospital, she not only provides direct care, but also helps shape ALS-MND management through providing education at a national level and participating in clinical-based research. Acknowledged by her peers as an expert in the care of people living with ALS-MND, Dr. Murray's contribution extended beyond clinical practice. Her involvement in developing the HSCP Deliver Strategic Guidance Framework for the Health and Social Care Professions 2021 to 2026 in Ireland, for instance, showcases her leadership in shaping strategic initiatives that impact health services on a national scale. In addition, she collaborates with professionals across countries in Europe-wide studies like the REVEAL study, aiming to understand and improve the impact of ALS-MND globally. Her involvement in initiating international networking groups further exemplifies her commitment to a worldwide fight against ALS-MND. What sets Dr. Murray apart is the passion she brings to her work. In the words of a colleague, her dedication is evident even to those who see her infrequently. She leaves a lasting impression on all of those fortunate enough to work alongside her. As we celebrate Dr. Murray's achievements, let us remember that her work is not just a testament to her expertise, but is also significantly impacted the lives of those living with ALS-MND around the world. Please join me in congratulating our 2023 Allied Health Professional Award recipient, Dr. Deirdre Murray.
Okay, do you want to do some remarks? You can. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much. I was sitting down there and I was like, I don't think they're really talking about me. It's hard to believe. So I did get a bit of forewarning, but when I got the email to tell me about this news, I thought it was spam because I didn't believe it. So I really am so honoured and delighted and surprised, obviously, to get this award. And I suppose the reason that I'm standing up here today is because almost 20 years ago, I was really lucky to get a combined clinical and research job working with the incredible Orla Hardiman. And from there, I became involved in the motor neuron disease clinic and work with an incredible multidisciplinary team where we're focused on, compassion, pragmatic problem solving, always having hope. It's this incredible environment that all of us we all speak the same language here today. And it can be busy and it can be demanding and, it can be difficult at times, but there's no loss or there's no lack of motivation when you are in every week and you're meeting the incredible people that are living with motor neuron disease and their families and how they face all the challenges that come, and that I feel so privileged to be part of their journey and to maybe solve some little problem that will make their life some little bit easier. And I'm, continuously motivated to go on and figure out new little small solutions that might make things some little bit easier. And I suppose what I really would hope for the future is that as a physiotherapist, someday we'll be standing up here talking at least about how there is some fantastic drug that is slowing this way down or halting the progress, and how we can really then come in with our exercise programs to augment it. We've seen it in other conditions. You know, once they figured out MS, then we were right in there as physios. We're like, right, well, what if you take that and you do exercise? And we could really see that this is where we're going. So this is what my huge hope for the future is, that we're heading in that direction. There's glimmers of hope that we've heard a little about with that today. So basically, thank you so much. I'm just absolutely thrilled.
Wow, that's so exciting. So well deserved. Just amazing. Thank you all very much for such a wonderful program and such fantastic engagement and questions today. I hope you have a great day. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening and make sure you're back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp. Some of us will be talking at 8 a.m. sharp. So all sessions are recorded and available to view after the event, so you don't have to miss anything. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening.